Today's guests are brother and sister. Both have played professional sports. They were born in Collingwood, Ontario, and raised in Brockville, Ontario. Stacey led Thousand Island Secondary School to 3 consecutive AA Ontario Senior Girls Basketball Championships before heading to Oklahoma, where she was a 2-time first-team All-American, 2-time Big 12 Player of the Year, the Big 12 all-time assist leader with 764, played for Team Canada in the 2000 Olympics, and was drafted 3rd overall in the 2002 WNBA draft by the Washington Mystics. Burke went to Concordia University, where he's a 3-time Quebec Intercollegiate Football Conference All-Star. I'm glad I'm breathing through this, man. Y'all are some special people. And then was a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Montreal Alouettes, Calgary Stampeders, and Edmonton Eskimos, and is a 4-time CFL All-Star. Welcome to the show, Stacey and Burke Dales. What's up?
Appreciate that, Nikki. Appreciate it, bud.
Thank you, Nick, for that introduction. I never get sick of stuff like that, hearing it about myself.
You know, you work in a male-dominated thing, right? It's like you're wearing men. You work in football now, and you're around these men all the time. When they talk about themselves, you know, when you hear Dion and others talk about themselves, Marshall, do you ever throw your stats in there or say, this is what I did?
That's loaded up, Nikki. I tell you right now.
You know what, Nick? First of all, as you know, and when Burke presented this opportunity to meet with you on the Zoom podcast, I was like super stoked because you're a legend, actually. You know, 15 years running and catching the football, blocking. To have a career that long and be that durable is much respect, because I cover some of these guys. I'm about you right now. You haven't hit the 40 milestone yet. You will soon. But when you play for 15 years in a football league, it's sometimes can be hard to walk. So kudos to you on that. I don't need to give those guys my stats. They know. I mean, Irv, you know, all those guys. I was so humbled a few years ago when Oklahoma retired my jersey and they put together a video. So, you know, you see somebody like Michael Irvin or, you know, Marshall Falk, Warren Sapp, all those guys who have become friends of mine and who I have great respect for what they've accomplished in their careers. To have them be a little tiny piece of a retirement video was such an honor. So all joking aside, Burke and I come from humble beginnings, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. You know, Michael Irvin was always my favorite player of all time, of any sport. He's my guy. And I'm actually planning a celebrity softball game next month with him in Dallas. So looking forward to seeing him. I haven't seen him in a long time. I met him once when I was coming out of college. And he gave me a little advice, and I guess it worked. What about you, Berkey? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, buddy. Michael Irvin was one of my favorites. I got to be honest with you. I love Dallas and the Bills. You know what, growing up. So, yeah, Michael Irvin was my favorite receiver behind Sterling Sharp, to be honest. And I got a chance to meet at the Super Bowl years back when Stacey brought Dad and I down to New Orleans when it was Mardi Gras going on. And I got a chance to meet Sterling through Stacey because he was working for the network at the time. But, yeah, Stacey really set us up that week. Dad and I, we went to a Snoop Dogg private concert. We went to a private party. And there's Ludacris, and the list goes on, eh? And I didn't really know how connected my sister was, but I do now.
I was talking to Nick Ring. You know Nick Ring? Berkey?
I know Nicky, yep.
So I was talking to Nick Ring the other day on my podcast, and he was saying, because he fought in the UFC. Stacey, I don't know if you know Nick, but he fought in the UFC for
he's a UFC fighter, Stacey.
Yeah, quite a few years. And he had been fighting for a while, and his mom had actually messaged me, and we would talk about him and stuff like that. And he was saying one day she seen a picture of me and him, and then she calls him and says, "You really are famous if you're taking pictures with Nick Lewis."
That's funny.
I'm like, that is crazy how that comes out, man. And no, but it's good. Is it hard being one of the only women in your field, Stace? Like now with everything going on?
Yeah, you know, Nick, I've done it for so long. I think when you start out initially in the field, so I'm going into my 11th year with the NFL Network. To start out, you have to earn the trust from people. And I mean, you're covering what is really a fraternity. I mean, as you guys both know,
Yeah.
You played at the highest levels. You both are all-stars in your own rights. You won championships, actually won together. And,
Yeah.
you know, and with Stamps, go Stamps. But, you know, you as a woman coming into it, you have to really, to a high degree, earn that trust and that respect. And I think it really helped that I played basketball. It's not the same sport, but I think, you know, you just have a mindset of the locker room. Burke and I talk about this all the time, right, Burke? You know, just
That's right.
he'll see a report and he'll be like, you just understand what that felt like because
and how to address those players that honestly don't give interviews to anybody. Stacey's worked her way in and they trust her.
Yeah.
So
you know, there's certain people you can say certain things to because you approach it with compassion and you understand what they're going through. You know, if they had a drop or if they messed up or if they made you understand what they're going through at the moment you're talking to them or speaking with them about the subject. So yeah, that's awesome.
There's an empathy, and I think in life, especially as we're seeing right now with the pandemic and just all of the, you know, challenges we're seeing around North America, and you know, with everything that is happening currently, there's an empathy in people that you can only bind your heart to somebody. So just for me in sports, just having an empathy. And I love the players. I love my interviews. There's nothing like grabbing one of you guys after a game on the field and you don't even know what to process, but you know, it may have come down to the final drive in the fourth quarter and something happens and you're just feeling the electricity of the crowd and you have goosebumps and you're interviewing somebody who just, you know, accomplished whatever, how many games in a row, or they made the big play, or you know, so it's really cool in that respect.
But you're a fan. You're just in the best seat, right? You get the best spot. That's how I always approach football. It's like I was a fan of so many guys that we played against, so many guys on our team and like on our defense, right? I could sit out there and watch our defense, and I was always standing up watching our defense. I hardly ever sit down because I was such a fan of guys, and I was like, man, I get paid to have the best seat in the house.
What was your favorite thing to do, though, Nick? I'm curious.
He'd like to track down.
Well, I'm curious. Like Burke was a punter, and I think his favorite thing was when he could punt it and headhunt somebody.
Yes, I remember when Burke asked to get on the kickoff team. Burke was asked to kill him.
Why would you put me on the kickoff team?
Put me on the kickoff team. I'll go down and make a tackle.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
Can't have you and Sandra on the field at the same time, Bert. My favorite.
No, but like all the things you did, Nick. Like when you think about, you catch it out of the backfield, you run the ball, you know, you have to help them pass pro, and then the numbers you put up were unbelievable in your career. I mean, record-setting CFL numbers. I'm just always curious, somebody at your position, what I always ask my running backs in the NFL, my fullbacks, whatever, what's your favorite thing to do? And I kind of find it interesting what those answers are consistently.
Yeah, you know, for me, I've always been a route runner in the way, you know, from college. We ran the option in college, so we had a lot of one receiver set. So that was when I first started blocking. I blocked back on people all the time. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to the CFL, I mean, to play with guys like Jermaine Copeland and Kenyon Rambo and Albert Connell and Wayne McGarity and Salacio. So many guys at receiver, and just to go out and be able to figure out a way to get it done, be so different than those guys, but still be able to be a part of it. I think.
Yeah, but were you like a yards after catch guy? Could you run?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they wouldn't, you know, later in my career, they wouldn't let me run down the field too much. So I still had to get yards, but I was getting it closer to the line of scrimmage. So it made it a lot of hard yards and things like that. But
may I interject?
Go ahead, brother.
Like when I was getting going with the punting, and I was nervous, and my first couple of years, and Nick, they would throw a dump pass to Nick on 2nd and long, and I would just be like, okay, I'm going to kick out of my end zone. Yep. Okay. Yep. That helps the nerves. It didn't. Anyway, he would bowl his way through 10 yards and get the first down every single time. Nick was known for his crackbacks and his yards after catch. And it really helped me in my career kind of springboard up, because I knew every single time he caught the ball within 10 yards on 2nd down, I knew he was going to run for that first. And so for me, he was a staple in my career. And I will give you props on that, Nicky.
Appreciate it, brother.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed most of it. I mean, I just had the mindset I wanted to be a great teammate, you know. I don't know if you know, I was a Division II walk-on, so it was never like one of those things where I was put on this pedestal and I just came in with I had to work to get where I was. So working was just what I did. And, you know, whatever I needed to do to be the best teammate. I talk about it all the time, being selfishly unselfish. And you know about this, has been in sports, is we get paid for our own stats, but we only win championships together, right? So you have to be selfish in the pursuit of what you want to accomplish, but you have to be unselfish in order to win a championship. Like, me having a great game might not be us winning a game.
Not enough.
Right. So that's the hard part with a lot of athletes is, you know, well, I need this many yards, or I need this many sacks so I can get paid this money or keep my job. But then I have to be unselfish and drop more in the pass, drop more or block more or do these things that I don't necessarily want to do in order for us to win games. Right. So it's a different transition. And young athletes, I find, struggle the most with it, because when you come into the league.
I have an audio issue.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
You got it, Stacey? I can hear you.
I don't know what happened. My Bluetooth just turned on for some reason.
There you are.
Hold on.
There she is.
No, I think her Bluetooth came on.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. So she's probably not hearing us.
Yeah, keep going with that, though.
No, I was just saying how early in the careers, you know, there's Burke in the locker room.
Here we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. There she is.
No. Dan, I have so many devices going, so I apologize.
All good. No, I was just saying how early in guys' careers, they come in, they want the contracts, they want to prove who they are, they want to put up the numbers and establish themselves. But, you know, in order for the team to win, you know, you having 1,000 yards or you getting this many tackles might not be what we
need to win the championship.
Yeah, and being a defensive tackle is like the ultimate. Defensive tackle and offensive linemen are the ultimate sacrificers, right? Because if your linebackers are really good, that means you have really good D tackles, right? And if you're an O lineman, if there's quarterbacks getting the ball off and the running backs getting yards, then that means you had a good O line or they worked well together. So, you know, you just got to tap into those guys that never really get the credit. They get the least amount of credit all the time, unless you're Aaron Donald, right? If you're Aaron Donald, then you're just a freak.
Who's your buddy, Stacey, in Minnesota? The two guys in Minnesota that you really like?
Well, I've always been a big Everson Griffin fan.
Yeah.
You know, he's getting up there in his years. I developed my favorite.
She froze out.
You know, who spent time in Canada. And
take that back, Stacey, when you froze out there.
Everson
Griffin, and then who?
I I think about Akeem Hicks, like, you know, you think about the, you know, D tackle, whatever you want to call these guys he's a guy in his younger days spent time in Canada and matriculated back to the States. But like, you know, O linemen and D tackles, they're so unsung. And I developed my favorites around the league, and many of them are, you know, to fall into those spots. So it takes what do they say? It takes a village.
Takes a village,
you know,
to get to that ultimate goal, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you and Burke's relationship. What's the dynamic? And when you're growing up, Burke, you're a couple years older. Were you mean to your sister? Like, how did this play out growing up?
Yeah, you know what? I roughhoused her a little bit. Hey, I think that you know, I toughened her up a little bit. We were living in the middle of nowhere, Nick, and you know what? Like, we were all we had, right? Like, we weren't from a big city. We didn't know the concrete jungle. I used to high jump in my sock feet. You know, we went to a school called New Dublin in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by cows and horses. That was about 195 people. And we were really separated from reality, in my opinion. Right? So, you know, we played hockey, we played baseball, we played soccer. And I'll tell you one thing about Stace is that we had, in a town of 21,000 people, we were on the under 17. We made the World Cup, or the Ontario Cup. They called it the World Cup.
Yep.
And Stace made our team at 15 years of age, and she was a starting halfback for the under 17 all-star soccer team.
Oh wow!
Craziness. The only girl to play in the Ontario Cup in history, and she could have gone on scholarships in soccer, field, obviously long jump, triple jump, high jump. She broke all the records at OFSA. Basketball, you name it. She had her pick of the litter, to be honest. And I remember her going to Syracuse and giving a verbal commitment. And her last official visit, I think you get 5, right, Stace?
Yeah, Oklahoma ended up being my 5th. I had gone to Syracuse, I don't know what point at, but you're right. I was basically ready to verbal. It's 2 hours from our house.
Yeah.
So,
how was it growing up with Burke as your older brother?
Wow. You might as well be transparent. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. Let's just say I grew thick skin as a kid. I mean, he pushed me to be very competitive and challenged me in ways that, you know, you set expectations in your life to be good, but then you don't.
Yeah.
I set my expectations so high because I became so competitive because I always wanted to beat Burke.
Wow.
And so, yeah, yeah, I mean, I can remember being a 5-year-old growing up in Collingwood and him putting hockey pads on me and putting me in a net in the middle of winter and shooting pucks at me. So, you know, he's 2.5 years older than me. So when he's 7.5 and I'm 5 and I'm in the goal, like, just like this. It's funny now, but
we're going to get good together.
And then you get a bloody nose and you soak up the snow with the red stuff. It's like, wow, you better grow up and you better develop thick skin and you better buckle up for safety. As Jim Carrey says, buckle up for safety. You know?
And color's great.
Yeah. So, yeah, but we were so obsessed with sports because, you know, think about the era we're all in, the three of us. This is like devices, social media. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 20 years old. So when you're growing up from, you know, in the 90s or whatever, and you don't have devices, the only thing you go to is sports. I'm sure it's the same for you in Texas, Nick. I mean, you go play football, you go play baseball, you go play basketball, you find a court somewhere. We even made a high jump pit with an old mattress and ladders. Remember, Burke, we would take these ladders.
I don't have my coffee.
Yeah, and then we would take like a rope or something just to like go to the backyard and practice high jump. We would make hockey rinks in our backyard.
Wow.
And then all the while in Canada, we're like a football obsessed family. That's why, Burke mentioned the Buffalo Bills. I mean, we didn't have hockey on. We had football on. We had the NFL on. So we had on NBA triple header on because I love basketball. And I would go out in the winter with my gloves on. I would shovel out the driveway, and we had an old hoop on our shed, remember, Burke? And I would play until it got dark, and then to put the spotlight on. So that's what we did because it's what we had. It was called Tin Cap.
Yeah. Just
outside of Brockville, 20,000 people in Brockville. So great town, by the way. Brockville's a great town. But when you come from small places, sometimes I think shooting out of them makes it extra special.
Yeah. It's so crazy for both of you to go and be professional athletes and excel coming from a small town. I'm from a small town of 4,000 people, so I definitely understand it. You create things to do and you create a lot of fun. Berkey, what drew you so close to football and really wanting to involve Stacey in everything? Right, because a lot of boys will just say, leave me alone to your sister, and go do it themselves or go do it with some friends. What made you involve Stacey in everything you did?
Stacey was a bit of a homebody, right? When we were growing up, and I was a bit of a wild child, right? So I was a bit of a black sheep. She was the white sheep. We both had a lot of potential. I didn't fully utilize that potential, and I'll be quite frank with you. I had an opportunity, I think, in hockey, but that dwindled away. Just with regards to, I was out in the ice running around chasing people and trying to fight people, and my mom and dad figured, and you know what, for the best, they figured that I was venting and I was using that negative outlet to unleash some negative energy, and they felt it best to pull me out of the game.
Let me interrupt for a second. That's called a goon. So when you're a headhunter in hockey, we call that a goon. And I will be honest with you, Nick. He had the finesse, and I'm not just saying this. I describe Burke as a hockey player as this. He had the finesse of like Gretzky, the way he could handle a puck and do things with a puck. But he became a goon. Go ahead.
So I knocked a few people out when I was 14, and my parents didn't really like that, right? So all that being said, then they tried to put me into karate, and that wasn't going to be a go for me because
you didn't want to fight nobody that could fight back.
Well, that's one thing, right? But I was going to street fight a karate guy, and I didn't want to put that cloth on my body. But anyway, so that all being said, I got into football in high school, and the first game that I played in, I had a really good quarterback by the name of Casey Coates, and he threw me 7 touchdowns in the first game. And it was pretty much a hook, line, and sinker for me. And then, I went up and played with Jesse Palmer in Ottawa. I was a tight end and an outside linebacker. I think I had more touchdowns, not to toot my own horn, but more touchdowns than the leading receiver. I had 9 touchdowns on defense on interceptions to the house, and a few obviously from Jess. And yeah, thought I was going to go on a ride to the States, and I was going to go as an outside linebacker. And that never really transpired, and I won't get into the details on that. But
how big were you then?
I was playing outside linebacker at about I was about 6'2.5", 225.
Okay.
And I could move. Like I ran a 4.6. Like I could move at that time. But then when I blew my shoulder out at Concordia, a full-on reconstructive shoulder surgery, the doctor said that I would never play again. So I picked up the football, and with a soccer background, I started hoofing the ball in a park over the summer and came back as the punter for the Concordia Stingers. And then everything took off from there. But so everybody says, "Oh, you're the kicker, you're the punter," and I kind of run with the comments and the stigma.
But you've never been considered a punter in a locker room, Berkey. I've talked to people in Edmonton.
Locker room,
I've talked to people in Montreal. everywhere you've been, and I know in Calgary, you were right beside me.
Yeah, so Stace, Nick, and I.
You guys say there's something wrong with punters?
Hey, kickers are special people. Usually it's just the kicker, though. Usually it's just the kicker. But the punter, they have their own little accord.
Basically, Nikki, he wanted to be you, but he had to settle for punting. He wanted to lead the CFL all time in receptions, but he settled for punting.
That's a great chat we had there, right?
Yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic when you look at the whole thing and you go through the shoulder surgery or shoulder injury that you say, you know what, I'm still going to make it, and you pick up a ball and start doing that. That says something about your character and says something about your belief in yourself. And when he leaves to go to Concordia, you're still in high school. Had you already won a championship, or what was that dynamic, Burke leaving and you staying there? Now, for the first time, you're there by yourself and he's gone.
It was awesome. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, Burke went and played football, and he had an amazing career, and I'm proud of him because he found, he was taken away. Like, he wanted to be a receiver like you. He was basically he was the size of a linebacker. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 230 pounds, 6'4". But because of soccer was our first sport, so I'm so proud of him that he found a niche like that he was so good at. But Burke's really good at pretty much everything he does. When he left, I ended up leaving a year early because I went to the States. I went to Oklahoma. And, in Ontario, Canada, we have a grade 13. We call it grade 13, where you're basically, you stay in school an extra year of high school, and you take like first year university courses. I don't know why we did that, but that's what we did. And I left in the 12th grade, after the 12th grade. So I left a year earlier than most kids do in Ontario. So I didn't stay that long after Burke, and went to Oklahoma, not far from where you're from, Nick, and started my career there as a Sooner. And then I've been in the States ever since. So,
well, let's go back to choosing Oklahoma. First of all, I'm a big UT fan.
Oh!
But choosing Oklahoma, you said you was Syracuse, that you almost verbaled.
Yeah.
Do you remember who else that you were looking at?
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, I was like a lot of Northeastern schools, Boston College. I went to Vermont on a visit, Wake Forest, Big East, ACC type territory. But Oklahoma was the last. I liked the program, and I liked the coach, and I liked the Big 12. So
yeah.
And I realized that, like, at Oklahoma, I just wanted to beat Texas like everybody else. So
yeah, that's what it comes down to, huh?
Yeah. No, I mean, it was just a great opportunity, So I'm super grateful for it, and I always knew Burke. Burke should have had a chance to get a scholarship. It was so hard for young male athletes to come out of Canada and get scholarships then, though, right, Burke? Like,
yeah, it was.
I bet it never really happened.
Never did. They didn't get the eyeballs
at that time. If you were Toronto, then you had a chance, but small towns, no chance in life.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, how did they find you where you were, Stace? As far as, I know you're winning championships, but how does Oklahoma and Syracuse find you in Canada in a small town?
I got invited to a Blue Star Elite camp after the 9th grade, which was in Terre Haute, Indiana. And
okay.
It was all the elite players in the country and the USA. And there were 2 Canadians that got invited, myself and another girl. And I went, and, it was like a 3-day elite camp, whatever it was. And they thought I was okay. So I started getting recruited at that point. And it was an opportunity again. We came on the podcast, and, you said telling people stories about their growth and opportunity. And I think in life, like, you try to take the opportunities. Like, Burke picked up a football and started kicking it when his arm went bad. And the coaches saw it, and they were like, hell yeah, man. You can launch it. Let's go. And so you just try to, you see the opportunities and you take them when you can get them.
Where'd that come from, Berkey? The belief in yourself that you knew that you were destined for greatness.
You know what? Like I did feel in my heart of hearts that I would have been in the NHL and would have gone that route. I wasn't ready, I guess, socially at that point in my life. So I always wanted to be a pro athlete. I didn't know what I was going to do to get there. Soccer was always my best sport, but there was no opportunities for Canadians at that time in soccer unless you went over to Britain or, London or Europe. And that wasn't in the cards. So I just always wanted to get and strive to the next level and get to the pro level. That was the goal in some kind of a sport. And so that all being said, when I started hoofing a football, I was like, okay, I can kick this thing over a building right now. Right? I'm just going to hit this thing, and I might not have the most accuracy, and I might not be able to pin them out with my sand wedge 30 yards in, but I'll learn.
Up from the rough.
I just knew that when I got football and kicked it for the first time, that thing was in orbit.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to do.
How did you feel about Stacey choosing Oklahoma, being so far from home and going way down there? And we all know the South is a little different than everywhere else. And you probably noticed that when you got there, how much different being in the South really was in the 90s.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel, Burke, that she was
I backed her ass up from day one on her choice and selection. She had the verbal with Syracuse. I remember her on the phone with the coaches at Syracuse after she had gone on the official visit, her 5th to Oklahoma, and fell in love with the coaching staff, the campus, the girls, like everything else on that trip. And she came back and she called Syracuse, and I remember her and my mom on the phone, and she was crying to the Syracuse coaches because she had to tell them that she wasn't coming there. And so whatever made her happy at the time, it made the family happy. And yeah, she was a long way away, but we still managed to get down and see her and just really backed her up like on that decision. And you know what? Oklahoma Sooners, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Norman, Oklahoma. I went down. I actually stayed with her for at least a month training down there when I made the Steelers. And she gave me her campus. She gave me her room on campus, and she let me stay there. And I went out and kicked balls every day because the weather up here obviously was snowing and it was winter. And my family's had her back since day one. It was her choice. She fell in love with the campus, with the team, with the coaches, and the rest was history.
You know what? I mean, Oklahoma's not a bad place. It's got a great history, and my people are from Oklahoma, the original Blackfoot. My great-great-grandmother. And so, yeah, it's, I say jokingly about UT and OU, and there's actually a softball game every year. I'm going to have to get TK to call you so you can go represent OU. It's OU versus UT for Matthew McConaughey and Roger Clemens and those guys. They have a softball game with one of my friends, TK, with the military. And everything is support the military, support those causes, and it'd be good to represent OU out there, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd love that. Absolutely. I would absolutely. What was your journey, Nick? I'm curious now because I think it was Southern Arkansas.
Yeah.
Right, D2. Like,
yeah.
To be as and you said you had to work, but like to be as good as you were catching the football, like how did you come out of that the way you did, I guess?
I never really had to work hard in high school. I was a small town. I was always gifted. And so I never really had to work hard. I never had to do anything extra to be one of the best players on the field or the court. Basketball was always my favorite sport. I played in an all-star basketball game and an all-star football game coming out of high school. And, ended up walking on to Southern Arkansas and, earned a scholarship after 2 years and broke every record I could break there. And then, kind of made my way to the CFL. So, but when I touched base on Southern Arkansas campus, One of the hardest places to play football is East Texas. It's probably the best football in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So when you're looking at that, Adrian Peterson is in East Texas at the time. I think he's Adrian's 3 years younger than me, I believe. But like you have Adrian Peterson there, and you have all these other great athletes that's going big-time D1 schools. Well, the East Texas Player of the Year was a freshman at Southern Arkansas on full scholarship with me as a receiver. So I'm thinking, like, this guy got to know how to play football. And we were competing for the fourth spot on the team, the fourth receiver spot. And that's only that travel was for. And waking up every day to compete with him, Juan Bedoya, man, it changed my life forever, because that's when I first had to dig within myself and compete. And at that point, it was like, I love competition, right? I wake up to compete. I help people, because I always say I want to beat you on your best day. I don't want to beat you on your worst day.
Yeah.
I want no excuses. I want you to be at your best. And I never wanted to make a team because somebody didn't know the playbook. So, like, guys would always say, like, why would you help someone try to take your job? I said, because they can't take my job. I'm that sure of myself. And if they can, I'll shake their hand and move on. But that's just that's kind of my mentality on things, and how I've always approached it mentally is when I fell in love with competition, it really changed my life, because even outside of the game now, we compete with life. We look at the COVID stuff, right? It's very hard on a lot of people. But for me, it's just another competition. It's just another view of how can I wake up and be better? How can I help people today?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me too. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you probably didn't have to compete that hard in small town Ontario and then go to Oklahoma.
Stacey, why don't you tell them about the ACL year one and how that kind of springboarded you to the next level, year two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like both of those points, like competing before college and then the ACL, my first year, my first game of my college career, I went to Oklahoma in '97. And from the point of competing, I just really felt like I had the biggest thing that I loved was I knew that I could make the players around me better. Yeah. I don't know what that was, but I knew I could elevate their play. So I knew that I was a leader, and I knew I could impact my teammates. I remember being like 8 years old, literally, and remember Burke when Brockville Blazers House League started up. Small town, we didn't have anything for the girls. The boys had hockey. So they started up this basketball house league, and I passed the ball to this girl. And when you score a basket and you're 8 years old, boy or girl, I mean, because Nick, you love to hoop.
Yeah.
When you're 8 years old and it goes through, you think you just like won the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
Like you think you just accomplished the Mount Everest. So when I was able to just vividly remember, and my friend just was like, kids jump up and down and show their joy,
yeah,
which adults should do more of. When that happened, I realized then that basketball was like I loved it. And so that was my mindset. And then I went to college, to Burke's point, and a minute 42 into my first game, we were at Stephen F. Austin. And I tore my ACL. I went up. I thought I used to be able to think I could jump and dunk and all those things. And I was just up in the air, and I came down and I landed and I tore it. And when you're 17 from Canada in Oklahoma, I mean, trying to figure out, there's worse things in this world, trust me. But when you're 17, it's all relative.
Yeah.
But tearing my ACL was like the best thing that happened to me, kind of like that was my push.
Yeah.
And figured out like I got to stop being so skinny and get in the weight room, and that's what I did. So through every adversity, you come out of it better. No adversity can ever keep you down.
Were you 6 foot when you tore it?
Yeah. I was a tall, skinny guard.
Dude, that's
1, 2, 3. I was a 1,
that's
2,
special
3.
being 6 foot. Like, there's only a few that could do it. Some of my favorites, Elena Delle Donne and Diana Taurasi, and it's so special to be 6 foot and and be able to handle the rock and play the game. I was talking to my cousin the other day. Women play the game at the purest, right? Watching the women play is like a pure game, right? That's taking out the ego of like just everything. It's just a pure game. Did you have an issue with oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's very fundamental. It's really team basketball, I would say, to your point.
Did y'all have issues
when you guys played Connecticut in that final game when OU got there against Connecticut, and was Taurasi not the junior point guard in that game?
I don't know if it was her freshman year or sophomore year.
Might have been freshman, I think.
She was amazing. I mean, one of the greatest competitors I've ever faced. Just like this uncanny will to win. And that year was 2002. We were in the national championship game, like Burke said, and we lost. They were just a better team, you know. Their starting five went in the first round of the with the exception of Diana Taurasi, they're starting four of those players graduated, and they went. Yeah, Swin was there, Asia Jones, Sue, and they all went in the first round of the WNBA draft. Sometimes the better team ends up winning. But
Did you have an issue with Canadian US? Because we know the difference, right? Mm-hmm. Did that play a factor in your mind at all? Even you, Burke, when you went to Pittsburgh, going to the US for the first time and playing, like, did that ever factor in, or did you just like, look, I'm an athlete, I'm a ball, and I'm gonna do what I do?
Go ahead, Stacey.
That's a good question. I just think then for both of us, like there were so few Canadians that went south. Yeah. So, you almost feel like you almost felt like a bit of an anomaly. I mean, now we're catching up, like in hoops, we're catching up. I mean, our national teams are outstanding. When I played for the Canadian team, it was a grind, so not only does it make me old, but it was just, it was something special. Like I said, like a launching pad out of Canada to get a scholarship. Yeah. Like, holy cow. And then, for Burke to go down and, compete with the Steelers, and, could be kicking in the NFL. I mean, and had an illustrious career in the CFL. It's like, and especially coming from a small town, like Burke said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me recap on that. So I guess my feeling on that is when I went to Pittsburgh, they didn't know what I was. Is he a linebacker? Is he a quarterback? Is he what is he? Like, who is this guy? And we don't want to talk to him.
Quarterback dropped in there.
No, I'm a weirdo. Like, I'm a weird Canadian, right? So I'm sitting in the back seat of the bus, and all the draft picks are there. Antoine Randall and Kendall Simmons and Larry Foote and James Harrison and you name it. The bus is full. And I don't have any clue who these people are, right? And they have no clue on earth who I am. And I'm sitting in the back seat. So it took them about 2 weeks to I went out for beers with them all 2 weeks after I got there. And then the next day in the cafeteria, early in the morning, they said, "You're not Canadian, dude. You're an American. You're one of us." And I said, "No, I'm pretty sure I still have a Canadian passport," right? So anyway, then they bonded to me, and I made a lot of friendships. And I guess my whole point being is this. I loved going down into the United States of America and fighting for that job. And I didn't get it done. I had a really rough game against the Lions, and I admit that. But
you want to share the story?
The experience alone, Nikki, the experience alone was second to none. And it really levitated me and my career here in Canada. And I had another opportunity to go down and work out and take Matt Turk's job out of Houston with the Texans. And Gary Kubiak was the coach there. And I elected not to because Ted Heller gave me a $40,000 signing bonus. And I said, you know what? One in the hand is worth two in the bush. Yeah. And I was happy playing with the Stampeders, and I knew we were on the brink of something big, and I wanted a ring.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just go down to the Houston Texans and punt the ball for the sake of punting the ball for more money. We had something bonded, I was beside you and Cope the whole time, and Sandro in the corner, and Joff and Ram, and like we just had something really special, and I didn't want to leave it. And Ted Heller gave me the $40,000 up front, and that's the reason why I stayed, because I didn't want to leave my team. That's a fact.
You want to tell your Pittsburgh story about punting out of the end zones?
Oh, you want to get me going on that? So this is what transpires. So this is my 4th preseason game, and my mom and dad decided to pick up my Aunt Bev in Milton, Ontario, right? So they come there, and I didn't know they were picking her up, so I'm scurrying around like a mouse looking for an extra ticket, and nobody had one. I had to go upstairs to the office and grab another ticket from the Rooney family. That's I'm not even joking.
I haven't made the team yet, but Mr. Rooney, I'm gonna need a ticket, please.
Hi, Mr. Rooney, I'm gonna need 2 ticks right now, please. Right? Anyway, I never really got a chance to go on the field and get my pregame in. So, like, if you're hitting a golf ball, Nick, and you're a golfer, and you go out, you get in the starting blocks, and you're pounding your 7-iron, your 8-iron, your driver. You kind of know where your mechanics are. I didn't have that opportunity. And then so Tommy Maddox gets sacks. He gets sacked on the 5-yard line. Split his chin open from LeVar Arrington. No, who was it? Who was on Detroit? Doesn't matter. And then Charlie Batch comes in as 3rd string, and he gets sacked on the 1-yard line, and we have to punt. My first punt, second half, is to Desmond Howard from the back of the end zone with 10 yards to boot. So I've got to one-step it. I haven't one-stepped a punt in my career, right?
Because wait a sec. I'm going to interrupt you real quick. And this is important because a lot of people that just see it didn't understand. You came from receiver. You became a punter because you could boot the hell out of the ball. So you didn't do it long enough to pick up a lot of the skills needed to really just be I don't want to say a great punter, but to do those special little things that you need to learn along the way. Like, you were just super talented and was able to do it.
I appreciate the justification.
Right. I just wanted to let people know because people don't understand that.
Yeah, it's hard to be a technician. It's hard to be a technician that early in your career, you know.
Yeah.
Like, even though, you know, he's like a uber athlete and can kick it a mile times 10. I mean, you know, you're right. I mean, and then you got to one-step it out of there.
Yeah. So back to the story. So I just wanted to interrupt and let people, you know, people have to understand this, Bert. And this is a part of the journey. And this, like any kid right now that's punting, this is something they say, oh, I need to go work on this. Right? Because this is situations you get into that you don't think about. Everybody wants to make the perfect catch in a perfect situation.
I love your justification, but here it is this.
Let's get it.
So Bill Cowher says to me before the game, he says, Burke, if you have a really good game, you're going to make the team. No pressure, right? That's facts.
I love Bill Cowher.
I love Bill Cowher too. And I wanted to play for that guy so bad. And he's a player's coach all day through, right? And then so there was extra nerves. And my first punt, I'm one-stepping it from the back of the end zone, and I've got the entire Detroit Lion team, first game ever in Ford Field, coming at me for a punt block. Thanks, God, for setting me up for this, right? I shanked it off the side of my foot, 38 yards. The second punt that I hit was 58 yards, line drive. Desmond Howard almost brought it back to the house. I tried to get that off. He juked me, and then got shoestring tackled on the 1. My fourth punt was another 58-yard punt, no hang time. I was in a complete mental scrabble, if you will.
Yeah.
And I knew at that point that I was done. I had one opportunity to seize it, and that's weighed on me for a long time because I had a bigger leg than Josh Miller, who was a 9-year Pro Bowl vet. I earned the respect of the team, and all I had to do was have a good game against the Lions. But Desmond Howard wrecked my crap.
Can I just say something, though? I'm so glad you didn't tackle Desmond Howard.
Oh, that would have been probably broke a few bones on
You feel me, Nikki? I mean, you feel me on that?
He's a little delicate. I get it.
You've seen him tackle a runner in an open field. It's just not friendly.
And, you know, one of the things, Bert, it's not that – and this is what, you know, we talk about things and we talk about just – even if you look at the CFL and people think CFL is one way, it's not that people aren't talented enough to play in the NFL, right? It's just creating and getting those tools in order to be efficient and effective, right? I think the CFL games is harder to play than the NFL game.
You know what, Nick? It's right place, right time.
Yeah, true.
Right?
100%.
Like we could have popped you into a slot back position with the Minnesota Vikings if they didn't have Diggs there, right? And if your time was there, you would have made the team. Like if I always say this to people, there's only so many positions on an NFL squad.
Yeah.
If you go to the right place at the right time, you maybe have a chance.
Well, you know how you talked about staying in Calgary. I mean, after my second year, I had 12 NFL teams off me contracts. Barker called me in and said, Tom Brady's agent, I've already talked to him. He'll be your agent. Ted was like, we're going to give you $100,000 to stay up front. And I was like,
I'm taking that.
Yeah, why not?
Because if you go down there and you're a camp body, if you're not in the right team at the right place at the right time, then you might lose that opportunity up here.
Exactly.
For that 100,000, it's one in the hand is worth two in the push.
And I feel like I made the best decision for me.
Yeah, and you did, and you had a phenomenal career. There's nobody better, dude.
Yeah.
Nick, I have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt. Like the CFL has always fascinated me for the very simple. It's just so simple. It's even ridiculous to say it, but like it's always fascinating because you have fewer downs, obviously.
Yeah.
And so as a receiver, you have so much opportunity. Why don't more receivers, like you had an opportunity right out of the gates and you started off great, you finished your career great. Why don't more receivers in the CFL get looked at, or do they in the NFL? Because it's such a demanding position in the CFL and you have to be good. You know, you just have to be.
The NFL is a structured league, I feel. I think what happened with the NFL, and this is my perspective, the NFL went from a game that you won by defense and run game. If you could run the ball and control the game and you could play good defense, you won the game 90% of the time. The NFL tried to convert to a more fun league and create more passing. So they created more rules to open up the game more. Mm-hmm. Quarterbacks were not able to withstand throwing the ball. I could throw the ball 20 times a game and I have a good game and we win games. Now I got to throw the ball 40 to 50 times a game. I'm throwing picks. I'm not looking great. And just that the quarterbacks wasn't able to, because football's so dynamic. If I'm in the West Coast and I'm looking at it where, okay, that's a one person read. If this linebacker does this, I know who I'm throwing the ball to, right? To a system where now I got to read three people. And I've never read three people. And it's moving faster than it's ever moved before. Right. In high school as a quarterback, there's yards. People are yards open. In college, they're open by feet. In the pros, it's inches. Right. So it gets smaller and smaller. And when we look at receivers, it's such a structured game, the NFL is, that it's hard to say because I feel like the NFL is more of it's a system, right? So if I'm a slot receiver, I'm going to be against a safety or linebacker. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going against a safety, that means he can't cover. And if I'm going against a linebacker, it means he's too slow. Now, if you put your nickel in the game, now we have a better chance to run the ball, as long as my slot receiver can block, right? So I feel like the NFL game is such a structured game, and everything is timing.
It's different. It's just a different brand than what you.
Yeah. And when I was coming out, there was only one guy doing it in the slot, really, and that was Brandon Stokely, right? There wasn't a lot of slot guys, and my rating coming out was a third or fourth receiver, which I knew I was a slot. I was 5'10", 195 pounds. It was like, You're going to be a slot receiver, fine. But there wasn't a lot of guys doing it. Wes Walker didn't do it until like 2000, I think it was 6 or 7.
Right? Who was that cat from the Jets?
Wayne Corbett.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Wayne was an outside receiver, though. He wasn't a slot guy. Right?
They bumped him in after.
Yeah. Brandon Stokely with Peyton Manning was the first slot receiver to really ever that. And then Kurt Warner had Oz Hakeem and Ricky Prohl and all those guys in the slot that started opening the game up more, too, with the slot. So, it was more about – and this is funny. Like, I got the all-time leading receiver in Canada receptions with 1,051. I wouldn't even be in the top 15 in the NFL. Right? Jerry Rice had 1,600 catches.
Yeah.
Right? All their stats and everything is set. The game plan is set to go to certain guys.
Right.
Right? So you're getting guys with 15, 20 catch games. T.O. had the 21 catch game. It's like you don't see that in the CFL because you spread the ball out between all 5 receivers or at least the top 3 receivers.
Right. That makes sense.
Right. So
and you got 65.5 yards across the field as opposed to 53.
Yeah.
So you want to spread that ball out.
Yeah. So it's just a different game altogether. I think a lot of receivers in the CFL could play there.
I think the Packers just they have one at least on the
Reggie Bagleton.
Yeah, Reggie. Yep.
Yeah, I like Reggie.
Yeah.
Going to be interesting. I don't know. Anybody that comes out of the slot in the CFL, it's even a harder transition. But if you're coming out of a slot to go play in the slot, you can do it. I don't think you could come out of the slot here and go play as a 1 or 2 in the NFL. And I just think number 1 receivers in the NFL, they're just so physically gifted that they're just on a total different plane.
You know who's going to have an unbelievable year in the NFL this year?
Who's that?
Larry Fitzgerald, because DeAndre Hopkins has just changed the game. Mark my words.
and Kyler can run around forever.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be I'm so excited to see like a guy like in 16th, I don't know, even year. I get excited for this kind of stuff because like the roster changes by the addition of one guy.
Yeah.
Who's one
face
for me.
Your favorite receiver, T.Y.?
My top 3 favorite receivers right now: T.Y. Hilton, okay, DeAndre Hopkins, and Devontae Adams.
That's a formidable.
Pretty good stack 3, right?
I'll tell you why. And every time I see those guys, I'm like, here's why. They're humble. They let their game speak for itself. They annihilate routes. Like when I watch Devontae Adams run a route, it is like
he's one of the best.
Oh, it's precision, it's technician, it's the same for all 3 of them. And when I look at T.Y. and how he's built, he is just like they call him. I mean, he's the ghost.
Yeah.
And then DeAndre is just.
Oh, DeAndre's ridiculous.
He can do stuff that I'm
he's
like.
He's the best receiver in the NFL.
I think so too. That's my take too.
I don't even think it's close.
How do you let him out of Houston? He blows my mind when I watch him play the game. It's just unbelievable.
His hands are ridiculous.
So, Stacey, you grew up watching football. You said you watch football all the time. What made you go NFL Network over anything else? I mean, because, you'd think you'd have your pick of which way you wanted to go to cover different sports. But NFL Network, that's really NFL-centric, right?
Well, it kind of just again, the opportunity came. I mean, I had been at ESPN for 7.5 years doing just a whole bunch of sports, college, women's and men's college basketball, NBA, college football. And I was at a time in my life where I needed a break and a transition from playing and that first part of my TV life. And I took a year off and I moved to California and the NFL Network called me. So I was like, honestly, I had to learn like hot potatoes. Because when you jump into something like the NFL or the CFL, it is a niche place. It is a place, like I said, there's a fraternity there. And so for me, looking back over the last 11 years of this, has been like, just such a great journey. And now the relationships that you build along the way, and then you develop your favorite players, and and I'm supposed to be unbiased, right? Because I'm a reporter, but the relationships become so impactful because you understand people's struggles. You understand why they had a chip on their shoulder. You understand how hard they work. I mean, so for me, that's what I appreciate most looking back over it. But I've loved the NFL. I've loved it. Yeah. I love football. Once you develop those relationships, and it can go all the way down to the communications and PR people that you work with on a daily basis. And then like what we're going through now, just some of these men, to hear their stories and their struggles, it's been really impactful for me. Just to really understand and listen to them. And it's been really awesome to, see their growth over the years too. Yeah. Right. So yeah. And just how good there's just, you hear the bad stories on the outside, but as you both know, being in these locker rooms with your brothers, it's like, there's so many good people that play this game that we love. And, again, it goes back to their stories, where they come from, and then how you blend that locker room. It's just awesome to me.
Hey, Stacey, tell Nikki about when you were in the Minnesota locker room and Tom Johnson pulled that picture of my mullet out in grade 7. I think Nikki's probably saw it. But.
You played with Tom?
I played with Tom, yeah.
Tom's good people.
I love Tom.
I love Tom.
I just went up to him and I'm like, my brother, right? He's like, who's your brother? I'm like, Burke. And he's like, oh, hell. He turns around, right? He goes into his locker. He pulls up his phone, and he goes, look at this. And it's a picture of Burke had a certifiable mullet in high school. And elementary school.
Grade 7. I'm not sure why he had it in his phone. It was weird.
Burke had like probably the most significant mullet I've ever seen. And
more than Joe Dirt?
Oh yeah.
So it was pretty tie even, right?
But like at the time, Burke was rocking some really hot steel braces. And,
thanks. Keep coming.
Yeah. Some nice steel braces. He had and it wasn't just the reason it was a certifiable mullet is because it was frizzy in spots. Like
I used to tease it.
It was froed out a little bit, teased a little bit. So yeah, Tom brought that to my attention. We had a good chuckle over that one. So
that's funny.
Yeah. Small world though, when you're standing in a locker room and a guy in there played with your brother, it's pretty cool.
Pretty cool shot too on Insta, other than the mully, right? But.
There's only about, if you look at the NFL and CFL, there's only about 2,300 of us, right?
Yeah.
So it does become a very small community, because when I hang out with some of my NFL guys, you meet other NFL guys and you're doing these things with people that makes it a small community. I just want to touch on a couple more things if you got time. One thing you overcame, you retired the first time in the WNBA, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain what happened, and does it still affect you?
Yeah. So I played 3 years for the Mystics, and I was young, and I had immediately out of my first year, an all-star year with the Mystics as a rookie, jumped right into TV. And I went through 3 years of, I felt like, to be very honest with you, I felt like there was some coaching that didn't necessarily, I'd always been like meant to thrive and give me the ball and I can create. And it, between, starting a TV career and just some things related or relevant to that, my spirit dissipated a little bit. And when your spirit kind of dies out a little bit, especially when you're young, you got to take a step back sometimes and look at it. And so I was also married, way too young in my life. It's a whole other story. But you go through all these things as a person in their early 20s or mid 20s, and sometimes you got to take a step back. So I retired, and then I moved to Florida. And sure enough, lo and behold, an opportunity came along. The owner of the Chicago Sky called me and said, will you come play for our team? We're starting up a new team in Chicago. So I joined forces to become part of the inaugural team. And that's kind of how I ended up. And I came back to the game. I'd always stayed in shape. So it was like I just walked right back into it.
Yeah. What do you the advancement of women? I'm huge into this. You know, I have a daughter and things like this, and it was awesome to see them go from $115,000 to $500,000 contracts. Can you speak a little bit about that and just the progress of the game from when you came into the WNBA to where it is now, and just some of the challenges that women have faced in the past of being able to do it at a high level, like I said, in a pure level, on a high level?
Well, I mean, women work as hard, if not harder, than our male counterparts. And the dedication and time that we put in and the product. I mean, when I think about, you mentioned Elena Deladon and Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird and, you know, Maya Moore and all these players, they're beyond talented and they deserve it. I mean, when I played, however many years ago that was, I think the maximum salary went from somewhere like $80,000 to $90,000. So think about Lisa Leslie, who's iconic.
Yeah.
And one of the best people that you'll ever meet, but played the game at such an incredibly high level, multi-platform Olympian. For her to be making $90,000 to $96,000, whatever it was, you look back and you think that just wasn't right. Yeah. And it isn't all about the money, but it also is about, like, you know, what are
respect.
Yeah, respect and what you're deserving of. So I'm super pumped for the women now that, you know, they're gonna be able to affect people like your daughter.
Yeah.
And, you know, show young girls that, hey, this is the opportunity that we have. And it's the same with soccer. I think the U.S. soccer team, the Canadian soccer team have made such incredible impacts on not just like North America, but the globe. So I'm all for it. I think, you know, women should be respected, like Burke said, and earn what they deserve. And so I'm really happy about that for the league, for the WNBA.
100%. Burke, man, can you just talk about how your sister has inspired you from what she's done and how well she's done and to what you do now and how you view life and everything else?
Yeah, no, 100%. So she kind of took the baton, if you will. When I was fighting through some demons when I was at the end of my high school career. I ended up staying back in Brockville for a few years and got kind of hung out with the wrong crowd and got into the wrong stuff, if you will. And I always watched her from the outside looking in. She was down, you know, she got that full scully to the Sooners. And then I'll never forget it. I was at my agent's place, Dr. Ping in Michigan, and he had all these families there, linebackers and receivers, and I was down slinging pool by myself downstairs in the basement of this mansion on a golf course in Saline, Michigan. And I was tipping back some pints and thinking that there was no chance I was going to get a look. And I was the first one called up. Kevin Colbert, GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the time. He's with Detroit now. He called. And I went up into Doc's room, and they said, they want to sign you to a deal right now. I was the first one called. This Canadian punter, crazy, downstairs, shooting pool by himself, drinking beer. And so I signed that contract, got this, I don't know, $5,000 signing bonus. It was faxed over. Stacey was a first-round draft pick. I think she was second or third overall in the WNBA that same weekend. And it was a glorious weekend for my folks. You know, us coming from such a small town in Ontario where we had more relationship with cows and horses than we did with our neighbors. So that was a glorious weekend for my folks. But I guess to answer your question, Stace has just been a superior. When she handles that basketball, you would think it was somebody in the NBA, not the WNBA, the NBA, with those handles. And I was always proud of her for that. She could have done any sport she wanted. best athlete that I've ever met. Seen. No, that's fact. No, that's a fact. So that being said, that always, you know, and Nick, you know me, man. I've been in trouble. I've been ups and downs, peaks and valleys. That's been my whole life. Yeah. But to have her to kind of follow when I was in the bad spots, when I was deep in the valley, I climbed up pretty quick and found that summit. So that's where I'll leave that.
Stacey and Burke.
And he was right. I was so glad that, you know, Burke taught me how to compete early, I think is the biggest thing, because, you know, nothing in life is easy. And if you can learn to be tough and to compete when you're young, when you start going through the levels of sports, it's almost second nature to you.
Yeah.
And I was able to take that from Burke. And as we've gotten older in our lives, I think like knowing how much he cares about me and just how proud of me he is, it like that's for me what it means now. It's not about even the accomplishments. It's about like having that family member, having my brother back me up. And he's always got my back. He's had my back through everything. So for me, that's like, you could talk about what you accomplished and you could talk about this and that. And, you know, Kevin Colbert was right when he called Burke with the Steelers. And, you know, he impacts people. He does. He's got this personality that is infectious, and it's when you're with Burke, you just laugh.
Yes, you do.
You laugh a lot. And so when Burke and I are together now, we just he makes me belly laugh. So I love that. I love those things now, to have that relationship with him now. And it's funny how sports started it all for us, you know, and very humble beginnings. And the other thing is Burke never changes. He never changes who he is. He will give the shirt off his back to people we grew up with to this day. And we love where we come from. Through this pandemic, I've been on Zoom calls with some of the gals I went to high school with. You never forget where you come from. And so humility drives you through life. I love your story, Nick. It's to go D2, to walk on D2 at Southern Arc and then end up being the all-time receptions leader in the CFL. It's unbelievable, really. You can't write it up better than that. So, and then look where that energy bonds you.
Yeah.
I get to be on a podcast with you guys right now, which is
but it's awesome. Like you said, it's all respect. You know, it's such a great thing to have that respect level of others. And that's why I love this podcast, to be able to understand others' journeys. And, you know, for both of you to come from a small town like me and for, you know, probably 99% of CFL fans or NFL fans don't know about Burke's shoulder injury, right? So they're going to learn something totally new about something that happened, right? Mm-hmm. It puts everything into perspective of what we want to accomplish. And I've always been on let's leave it better than we got it, right? Yeah. And we're borrowing everything that we have, and we've borrowed the platform, and now let's use it to do something positive. And I appreciate both of you for so much for coming on and sharing stories and laughs and everything, because this is what it's about, right? Mm-hmm. How many people can we help with just sharing our stories and some of the things we overcame? I mean, Stacey, you tearing your ACL in 97. Like, in the 90s, ACLs ended careers.
Yeah.
Right? You came back and you were two-time Big 12 Player of the Year. You were you played for the Canada's national team in the Olympics, and you went on to be number 3 overall pick in the WNBA. And Burke, you tear your shoulder and you start doing something you've never done before, right? Everybody knows kicking a soccer ball is different, but to say, you know what, I can do this, and have enough belief in yourself to go out and make it happen on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not natural. There's a lot of people that quit. There's a lot of people that give up.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, through failure, we find different ways to get to success. Some people just say, you know what, maybe it's not meant for me. Or maybe that person's lucky, right? I could have said, you know what, I'm going to walk on Division II. I'm not supposed to do that. So why am I working for that? Why am I doing this for that, right? So it's very special, and I appreciate you for sharing your stories. You got anything else, Berkey? Oh,
No,
you know what?
Yeah, I really
tell everybody
don't have
about the shields.
I don't have too much else. Yeah, I got the shield company coming up. It's called Grizzly Shields. It's born and made in Alberta. It's 6mm tempered glass shields. We're protecting people, patrons, employees, patients. I was going to go stir crazy through that pandemic. I almost ran through my window one night, but I thought, you know what, not the move, right? So what I did was I had a couple of beers. I came up with an idea. We went and designed this stuff, and now we're out producing. And we've opened up in Ontario now in Victoria with these shields. I've got a lot of support from my family, and I know you, Nick.
Yeah.
And I can get you going with this business out in Saskatoon because I know you're out there. But you know what? To get the economy rolling again was the mission vision. And you know what? To get Alberta back on its feet again with the economy was the mission vision. So I love the fact that you put this on, Nick. I appreciate you having us. I love the fact that I was able to reconnect with Stacey tonight. We haven't talked in a couple of weeks. I know she's busy with NFL, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Can you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you if they want the shields, or just get a hold of you on social media?
Yeah, so it's just Burke at grizzlyshields.com, and I can take it from there.
Awesome. And Stace, how can people get a hold of you, or any last words?
Well, I ain't giving out my cell phone, but if they I'm on Twitter.
That's down, yeah.
Yeah, but my last words, thanks, Nick. I'd love to do this again. I mean, it's just so cool.
Yeah.
I as I told you when we started, to get to do this with somebody who's, and you know, Burke has told me over the years some of his favorite teammates, and there's unquestionably a handful of you, and to get to talk with you being one of them is really awesome. So thank you. And I also, thanks for repping Texas and Canada. So I don't know what always that looks like, a Texas boy in Canada, but maybe you have a Canadian hockey jersey too at this point. Well, you know.
I do.
I'm sure he does.
Speaking of, okay, if you had to pick one of those things behind you?
Yeah.
As number one, which one is number one? Out of the balls, the jerseys, the pictures, what's number one?
Well, Burke's picture's down here.
Yep, I see that. Looks like we're going against Montreal. Nope, in Calgary. There it is. Yeah.
And then that chair.
That's our grandma. Is that Grandma Bell's?
That's our great grandma's chair.
Yeah, she was 99. No bigs, eh?
Yeah, no bigs.
That's number one.
Yeah, my great grandma's chair. That's an antique. I got this here. That was my all-star basketball. I had all the players sign it. The football, that was 100th year of football in the NFL. This one.
Yep.
So we all got one of those, and then this maybe. I won this last year on our Good Morning Football weekend show. It's called Who Said That? I do impersonations.
Can we get one?
Hey, give her some. Give us some Harry Carey.
No, I did an impersonation of Mike Tomlin last year, and I won this. That was a part of the impersonation list. So
can we get that?
Can you get Tomlin?
I'm not going to speak like him right now. I'd have to listen to him, but.
Hey, Stace, what about some Harry Carey from Saturday Night Live? No?
Probably not going to happen. Have to have a couple pints for that one, Burke.
I hope everybody's watching the video portion of this because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Thanks, Stace.
Sorry we took so much time, Nikki. Woo.
No, I could do this. I could do this forever.
I mean, if you get
I'm gonna go climb back in the hole right now. I'm like a hermit.
I told you we'd have some fun, guy.
Yeah, people don't understand it. Like, I'm a true entertainer. Like, when I'm out and stuff, I like to entertain people, be the life of the party. But when I'm at home, I'm like a hermit. I stay in the room. I watch TV. I work on different things to see how I can help people and do things. But yeah, I think I'm a boring person until there's a camera or something.
Till you get in the limelight, yeah.
It's like Girls Gone Wild. It's like, camera? Oh!
Well, if you ever get to Chicago after the pandemic, Burke, send him my cell phone, okay?
Yeah, we'll talk about other things too.
The pandemic, guy.
The pandemic.
That's what you got.
We got a Scully and a pandemic. I'm gonna need like a thesaurus to get through this episode.
That's the Dales record. Anyways, thanks, Nick. Stay in touch with me, okay?
Will do.
All right,
Berkey,
guys.
have a great one. Appreciate y'all.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Nikki.